The neon sign flickered weakly against the dusk, spelling out, "Maggie's Diner," in uneven letters. For Jack, it was a beacon pulling him back to a place he'd sworn never to return. 20 years had passed since he'd last walked through that door, 20 years of running from memories that now demanded to be faced. The bell above the entrance jingled with eerie familiarity as he stepped inside, the scent of coffee and grease hitting him like a time machine. Every booth, every crack in the linoleum floor told a story, his story. At the counter sat an old man who didn't turn around, but simply said, "Took you long enough." It was his father. The weight of those 3 words carried decades of unspoken pain, regret, and the faintest glimmer of hope. What followed was a night of unraveling family secrets, of confronting the choices that had torn them apart, and discovering that forgiveness sometimes wears the apron of a short-order cook. By sunrise, over plates of cold pie and lukewarm coffee, they found something neither had dared to expect: a second chance. The diner at the end of the road wasn't just a place, it was the crossroads where past and future finally made peace. Jack hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the door handle. The diner looked almost frozen in time, untouched by the years that had transformed him. He wondered if the same could be said for the people inside. As he pushed the door open, the warmth of the diner enveloped him, a stark contrast to the chilly evening air. The familiar hum of conversation and clinking dishes greeted him, but it was the sight of his father that stopped him in his tracks. The old man's shoulders were stooped, his hair gray, but his presence was as commanding as ever. Jack took a seat at the counter, the same stool he'd sat on as a teenager. His father didn't look up, but his voice broke the silence. "You look tired," he said, his tone gruff but not unkind. Jack nodded, unsure of how to respond. The conversation that followed was stilted at first, each word carefully chosen, each sentence heavy with unspoken meaning. But as the night wore on, the walls between them began to crumble. They talked about the past, about the mistakes they'd both made, and about the pain that had driven them apart. Jack learned things about his father that he'd never known, stories that painted a picture of a man who had struggled just as much as he had. By the time the first rays of sunlight peeked through the diner's windows, they had reached a tentative understanding. The diner, once a symbol of everything Jack had left behind, had become a place of reconciliation. It was a reminder that sometimes, the hardest journey is the one that leads you back home. As Jack stepped out into the morning light, he felt a sense of peace that had eluded him for years. The diner at the end of the road wasn't just a place, it was a bridge between the past and the future, a place where forgiveness could finally take root. Jack's return to Maggie's Diner wasn't just about confronting his past, it was about reclaiming his future. The diner had always been a constant in his life, a place where the lines between family and community blurred. As he sat across from his father, he realized that the diner was more than just a building, it was a living, breathing entity that had witnessed the joys and sorrows of generations. The stories shared that night were not just about Jack and his father, they were about the people who had come before them, the ones who had shaped their lives in ways they hadn't fully understood. By the time the sun rose, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. The diner had given him more than just a place to reconcile with his father, it had given him a chance to rediscover who he was. The diner at the end of the road was a testament to the enduring power of family, a reminder that no matter how far you run, you can always find your way back. Jack's journey didn't end at the diner, it was just the beginning. As he drove away, he knew that the lessons he'd learned that night would stay with him forever. The diner had been a place of refuge, a sanctuary where he could confront his demons and emerge stronger. It was a reminder that forgiveness is not just about letting go of the past, it's about embracing the future. The diner at the end of the road was more than just a place, it was a symbol of hope, a beacon that guided him back to where he belonged. Jack's story is one of redemption, of finding